How are you doing? How you doing, Happy Guy?
Mike, how you doing? Good to see you.
Tom Davis says hi. Oh, good. I'm just gonna sit in the background. Where's the best place to sit?
Oh, probably anywhere over there. That's fine.
I just want to see what's going to happen.
Sure. Okay. A study session of the Aurora City Council for Monday, April 7, 2025 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman,
Here.
Councilmember Bergen, Councilmember Coombs,
Present.
Councilmember Gardner, Councilmember Hancock, Councilmember Drinsky, Councilmember Casal, Councilmember Lawson, Councilmember Medina,
Here.
Councilmember Murillo,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sudberg.
There's no mayor's update. Are there any issue updates? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving the consent calendar forward, item number 2A through 2E? Seeing no objection, the consent calendar will move forward, item number 2A to 2E. Items from the policy committee. Item number 3A, crime strategy presentation, Chief Todd Chamberlain.
And Scott, can you hear me up there? Great. Mayor, where would you like me to do this thing?
Yeah, what do you think's the best? Podium?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, right there. Good.
How are you? Hope you're well. I'm going to give you a quick presentation on, it was a discussion about what crime strategies is Aurora PD using and how are we implementing that in the city. And so I'm going to give you, it's kind of a long one, but I'm going to condense it down as quickly as I can because I got to let you know that there's a lot more to crime fighting than just somebody being out on the streets putting people in jail. You have to have the infrastructure to support it. You have to have the resources and the logistics to support it. Again, everything that we do in Aurora PD is evidence-based. Evidence-based came from a professor by the name of Lawrence. Lawrence said that we should be looking at crime the same way you look at medical intervention. It should be based on having data, having information, statistics to say what we are doing, how we are doing it is effective, and where it's not effective, then stop doing it. When you look at constitutional policing, again, when you look at the first three amendments of the Constitution or the first three articles, they basically set up our infrastructure, they set up the legislation, they set up the judicial, and they set up the executive. All of those then relate specifically into the amendments that we have to contend and deal with and our officers have to confront. Our focus is crime, community, organizational sustainability, and officer wellness. If you could go to the first slide, please. I broke it down into three separate sets. I broke it down into policy, guidelines for compliance, constitutional policing, ensuring that we're there, the process. What does crime analysis look like? How are we doing it? How does deployment and review focus into that? And then ultimately our people in patrol. You could go to the next slide. What you're seeing is the policies. That was the first thing that needed to be done, is looking at the policies within the organization and seeing where do they need to be modified, how they need to be changed, and how would they best going to fit the community that we're serving and the organization and the resources that we have. So since coming in, these are the policies that we have modified. We've modified emergency response vehicle operations, police pursuits, reporting use of force investigations, use of force adjudications, arrest procedures, complaint and discipline procedures. You might not think that a lot of this has really anything to do with fighting crime, but this has everything to do with fighting crime, because if our policies are not sound, nothing within the organization is going to function. These things in regards to use of force adjudication, complaint and disciplinary, those were necessary because we had such a humongous backlog of old personnel complaints and old use of forces. We had officers that were involved in use of forces that were about 2 to 3 years old. They weren't being presented at a use of force review board. That officer basically had that hanging over their head. Many of them weren't being deployed. They were working administrative functions when they should have been out in the field. And the process was backed up so incredibly high that that's the first thing that we needed to do, was make sure that we effectively did it without compromising any of the investigation. Same thing on the complaint process. huge backlog in personnel complaints, and then nothing was being adjudicated at a command level. So everything had to go up to the chiefs, which again basically circumvented all of the commands and their operations and what they could do as far as being able to give discipline, being able to address the activities that was occurring. It was a huge undermining process that the officers were not effectively being addressed timely when they did something out of policy or out of the deviation, or they weren't being put back into the field quick enough. So in order to fight crime, all these things had to happen. Some of the things that are the most potent, that modifications, the pursuit policy. Again, I don't know if you are all aware of it. I hope that you saw a lot of the discussion on it. Before this pursuit policy got modified in February, again, an officer could get behind a car. So, sir, your car was stolen. You go out in the morning, you hit your ignition, there's no car there. You got your keys, but nowhere to put your keys. An officer would get behind that car, they would run it, verify it was a stolen car. They'd activate their lights, the car would accelerate away. They could not follow that car. They could not go in pursuit of it. So basically, you had somebody that was allowed to commit a felony crime with absolutely no accountability. So the modification to that occurred. When that occurred, we've had about 17 pursuits so far since the modification took place. 75% of those individuals that were stopped in those pursuits had extensive prolific criminal histories. So they weren't out stealing cars and then just taking it and saying, I'm going to go to the pop shop and meet somebody for a soda pop. They were stealing those cars and then going out and committing more crimes. So again, that was a huge aspect. Another modification is our vehicle operations. Officers here on priority 1 and priority 2 calls, which are basically the calls that involve imminent threat of harm or an ongoing event of criminal history that's happening while this is ongoing, officers were not responding in code. So again, you could have a robbery, you could have an assault, you could have a burglary where the suspect is in your house and our officers were not responding with code 3 lights and siren. A lot of different reasons for that, but basically is because the policy needed to be modified. So now we're going to start having more officers responding code 3 to calls for service. And again, a lot of the pushback is, well, hey, I'm not followed under 217 of the Senate Bureau of the Board because 217 doesn't cover me for qualified immunity based upon this. It's actually the opposite. If an officer is under the protection, if they are following the policies and procedures of the organization, they have more protection than if they freelance, pull up to an intersection without lights and siren on, hit the lights and siren, go across, they get involved in a traffic collision. That's where the litigation, that's where the risk occurs. So having them under the umbrella of a policy and procedure that falls within 217 is much safer for the organization. It's less litigation for the city, and more importantly, it's getting our officers to where they need to be much quicker, much faster. And also I hope it has an effect too, where our officers are being seen more, driving around the community with lights and siren on. Hopefully that will change the dynamics of the incredibly poor driving patterns we have here. Hopefully people will put down their bongs when they're driving and think about actually driving. Hopefully it'll bring a little bit more control to what's going on.
They're from California.
I've never seen drivers as bad as I've seen in Colorado ever. And I've not seen the marijuana use as bad as I've seen it here either. Next slide, please. Next thing I talked about personnel and deployment of our personnel. Again, the command structure. I know when I first got here, there was a lot of condemnation, a lot of, to be really honest with you, a lot of outrage that I took the opportunity to move personnel from one command to another. I tell you, you didn't have to be a brain surgeon to look at the operations, what was occurring, look at the numbers, look at the statistics, look at what people were in what commands, and identifying the problematic ones and the ones that needed to go somewhere else to get a different view. It's not that any of those personnel were bad in any way. It's just that, again, over a period of time, there's things that you look at from a leadership perspective, there's things that you look at from an operational perspective, and those roles were not being fulfilled to the best of what they could be. So again, there was a modification on the command staff where they were moved. I think the productivity is going to speak for itself as far as those movements and those changes. It brought in a new set of optics, a new set of lenses to personnel that had been there for too long, started taking on the yoke of responsibility for the officers it should have been doing. They got too close to the trees to see the forest. So those modifications were not only needed, but they were warranted. Another thing we did is the captain rank within the Aurora Police Department. It was basically it was a throwaway rank. The people that were captains were not put in positions that actually had any authority. It was basically became a position where someone would drop into an area if they didn't have anywhere else to put them, if they got demoted or something like that. So we completely reshaped the captain rank. Now they are all out into areas, which gives the commanders of those areas a dual responsibility to mentor and support those captains, where the captains can learn the trade, learn the craft, and they can hopefully step up into commanders as commanders step up into chiefs. And really, it limited what they had to do and how much work they had to do, and allowed them to institute a lot of those policies and procedures, specifically when it talks about adjudication, when it talks about those different items that need to be done administratively to function internally. We also looked at the consolidation of the units. Again, I know that that was a big problem with a lot of people, where units were taken out of special operations and put back into patrol. That occurred with our DART team, it occurred with Grit, Raven, Aurora Save, and our GEI unit. And then also we stood up a real-time information center, which is now functioning and going, and we hope to get a lot more information and details out of that in real time related to our crime function. The last one is, or I'm sorry, not the last, but the other one is a civilianization of the business services. There was multiple captains that were staffed in that. There was multiple lieutenants. That has now been completely civilianized. Those lieutenants that were once in there, those captains that were once out in that position, are now back into the operations section and actually having a span of control of resources personnel. And then again, the civilianization really helped because there's so much more ownership. A department will sink or swim not just on the sworn, but also on the non-sworn. And our non-sworn are absolutely incredible, and they don't get the identification and the praise that they deserve, but this really helped with that. So the movement, staffing, and the resources and the impact. These are the steps, again, that go into it. If you go to the next slide, please. Another big part that was kind of needed to get massaged and looked at a little bit was our analysts. Again, when I talked about the importance of non-sworn, an analyst is absolutely imperative to understanding what crime is occurring, where it's occurring, how it's occurring, and when it's occurring. So much technology is purchased and then it's not effectively used. So we did an audit on all the technology that the resources had within the Aurora Police Department. We had layer upon layer of technology. Now we just had to get the analyst to be able to tell us how to best use that, where to put our resources, what's the most effective way to use our resources, where, when, how, and why. And all of these analysts has been doing that. The big thing for me is getting to a point to where our analysts can create our own dashboards, can create our own data-driven resources without having to go to an outside vendor, without having to go on-prem or use the cloud or use somebody else that we're going to get in a sales for service contract over long-term that extrapolates out to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. If we can staff it properly, if we can get the right people in the right place, they should be able to build that technology based on the request of the organization and what's needed.
Quick question.
Yes.
On those vacancies, are we having difficulties filling them, or like how long have they been vacant?
No, the vacancies are actually in the process of getting filled now. We only have one, probably 6 months ago or 3 months ago, that was almost empty. So we're in a really good spot right now. We're getting really good talented people to come in and do it.
Great.
Thank you. Next slide real quick. And I wanted to show you this. I think this is really important. Again, this is not a request for bodies. I understand the budget. I understand the mechanics of that. This is more of an enlightenment for everybody in this room because I think it's an important conversation. BGA, Bureau of Justice Administration, the FBI, they have files which basically state that a department should be staffed at 2 officers per every 1,000 community member. Right now, the Aurora Police Department is staffed at 748. That stopped probably about 3 or 4 years ago when the city was below 3,000 or 300,000. Right now, the city is at 404. 404 is what's been counted. I can probably guarantee you that there's probably another 30,000 undocumented that are within the city, and the base is 20,000, which I talked to the commander, and I don't believe that they're in the census either. So you're roughly looking at about 450,000 some people in and around the community of Aurora. Right now, we are staffed below the national level and the FBI level. We are at about 1.7. So we have 1.7 officers per every 1,000 community member. The national level, from FBI statistics on the very top there, most departments, major city departments, that are about 2.4 officers. In the state of Colorado, right now they're a little about 2.2. So this department is woefully understaffed. It's not a matter of, I think we are, I know we are. And so again, I understand budget, I understand those concerns, but I think that this is something that needs to be discussed. I think it's something that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of and you had information on. Because again, even if we don't get the staffing, like I said, we're authorized for 748. We're actually deploying 707. Our patrol resources, our billets are at 219. We're actually staffing 202. So 202 officers are split amongst 3 different commands. Again, that is a very small number when you're looking at an operational period of 24/7, 365. So these numbers are huge, and it's not just about the bodies, but it's also about the funding. Because that funding vacancy that we had and the ability to use those funds as we increase is going down. So if we went to actually what the size of this department should be on a 404, just a baseline of 404 population, it would be at 808. If we had those vacancy savings, that's where the technology could be used, that's where the different information could be put into it. That's where the overtime usage, the SOS details, all these things that, again, right now, we're struggling with as we get much more people in our organization. Just a question, I wanted to throw that out there for everybody so you're aware. Again, next slide, please. Again, this gets into the crime fighting process. What is that? Again, I broke it into 3 different things. It's near term, it's midterm, and it's far term. If you go to the next slide, it will give you an example of each of them. Near term is what's known as hotspot policing. So you take a small area, you identify it based upon crime stats, based upon calls for service, based upon what's occurring around there, how many homicides, how many incidences occurred. Then you identify that small location. It's usually about a block in space. And then you start to address it. You start putting resources in, you start doing stops, you start doing foot beats in and around the area, you start doing citation issuances, you start to do a lot of things in a small area to change the dynamics of that area. A lot of people will think, okay, well, hotspot policing, is that over-policing? It's not. Because over-policing would be if we just focused on everybody in there. This is focused on the people, it's focused on the places, and it's focused on the events. It's not over-policing in the sense that just everybody is going to go to jail. It's also about that community aspect of being able to do walkthroughs and go through a location, meet people, knock on doorknobs, have conversations with people. So again, it's multifaceted. That's the near term. It's a quick approach to identify a location, focus on it, and then evaluate based on evidence-based practices. Is crime going up, going down, or is it staying stagnant? And if the things we implemented are having an impact, or if they aren't, then I need to adjust that and change that. If you go to the next slide. This is going to be a focus on midterm. Midterm is basically a place-based. And so again, Dallas is a perfect example of that. Dallas is a location that was problematic. It had a lot of issues. But again, you wouldn't know it based on a lot of the data that did not come out based upon people not self-reporting or identifying. So again, on a place-based, you're looking at locations where the stakeholders, the community as a whole, can focus on those locations, stop it. Dallas was an example where the city came together as a collaborative, a whole-of-government approach, identified a location, city attorney did what they had to do, Nusher Closians, the city manager brought in the resources to handle it. That was a place-based approach to focus on a location. We just had a conversation with Jessica, and we sat down and we were talking about our place-based approach on some of the smaller low-hanging fruit ones. So like under the 225, for an example, between Colfax and 6th, huge homeless encampment. We had an incident there last week. A body was found underneath there that's been there probably for a couple of months, I would say. Very problematic. That's a location where we can internally, since it's a city-controlled location, we can start looking at how can we change that environmentally, how can we focus on that place to change the dynamics of what's occurring there, and then to see where it goes. If you could hit the next slide real quick, please. Long-term strategy, again, intervention prevention. So when you look at Aurora Save, that is an exact example of intervention prevention. It's about identifying individuals that have the highest propensity of violence, either killing somebody or being killed themselves, using them as lever pullers to go back into their group or their organization and tell them, hey, this is a strategy that I was approached with. It talks about what the law enforcement will do, what the city attorney will do, what a collaborative DA will do, and it holds those individuals accountable. The mayor has been involved in our last one. Again, we had 3 individuals that came into our last call-in. It doesn't sound like a big number, but those 3 individuals were involved in about 25 shootings in the city of Aurora. They were somehow connected. If you did a network analysis of that, that's what it would show. And that actually is a success because one of those individuals kind of turned the corner. So that's an example of intervention prevention, trying to modify an individual's behavior or place. You go to the next slide real quick. This is an example of what is going on right now in the city of Aurora. This is an example. This is up in District 1. So it shows a hotspot that's been identified. It's a location. Then it shows the calls for service, citizen initiation, officer initiation. And then we look at time periods and we say, okay, have shot fire call gone up or gone down? And then we assess and we view all of the hours that are put into it. So again, patrol hours were 158.37, 46 hours with DART, 7 with PAR. And then we look at the productivity. Again, productivity is something that has not been measured here in Aurora a lot, but it's something that is really tangible, and it tells you if you are touching the right people and doing the right thing based upon how crime goes up or down. If you go to the next slide real quick. This is another example. This is in District 2. This is a shoplifting at Target. So this talks about the initiation of what occurred, what the observations were, what things happened, how much time was spent there, and then what the outcome was. So these are just examples, but this is what a hotspot actually looks like. Can you go to the next slide? Metrics on it, again, proactive policing is something that hasn't been measured a lot of. What is being done, how is it being done, and is it having a good effect or a negative effect, and how are you measuring that effect? When you look at analytics, this is exactly what analytics and technology is for. It's about the crime, the location, the date, the suspect, the victimology, MO, and patterns, and then how can we correlate that with the actual individuals who are doing it, as opposed to just doing a broad brush where you're infiltrating an entire neighborhood and you're getting the community really upset. Instead, you're focused on the actual time, the locations, the individuals, and then again, who are the victims? If you go to the next slide. So again, here's what we're looking at as far as productivity measurements. We're looking at stops, contacts, directed patrols, arrests, citations, crime forecasting, repeat offenders, community contacts, prevention, intelligence-driven deployment efficiencies, problem-oriented outcomes. All of these things are measured, and again, when you saw those first 3 items that showed hotspot policing, those details were in there. The time, the location, the impact, the recap, the hours spent, did crime go up or crime go down. If you go to the next slide. I could spend about an hour on each one of those if you want. It's up to you. I really wouldn't do that to you. This is what it looks like at the end. Again, the productivity. So this is the other units. Again, the department is much more than just patrol. It is a department that cannot work in silos. And that cannot function that way. And that's what all these staff meetings that we've been doing in the integration is getting other units. So special enforcement sections, looking at arrest, looking at how they are impacting how much dope, how does that impact the crime the patrol might have or a community might have or District 1 or 2. It's about using different resources in the most effective way and then measuring that impact. If you could go to the next slide real quick, please. Traffic section, again, another big aspect. It wasn't really captured and it didn't really show the productivity rate between different months or year to date. And so all of these focus on that and the locations of where these events are occurring and how they're occurring. And then the total citations and the numbers. So last January 388, February 581, right now we're at 969 citations year to date. And then these are the reasons for those. You can go to the next slide. Aurora Save, again, another measurement that we want to make sure we're capturing. So when I talked about intervention prevention, so you saw the crime, you saw the hotspotting, you saw the place-based on one of the an analysis of the recap. This is specifically an Aurora Save. So it shows total number of custom notifications, contacts made, juveniles, what gangs they were with, what was the outcome, the average age of the candidates that were brought in, and then again, the ultimate percentage rate of how many were actually served and when they were served.
Mayor, Chief, can I just ask you a question just
Sure
on that?
can.
So I appreciate what Aurora Saves is doing, but every time we turn around, we get an email about a juvenile being shot. So how is that factored into this when we continue to see juvenile shootings? I mean,
again,
there has been quite a few.
Yeah, I know there's been a few, and again, that is the problem without question. It's a problem that I think is more of a societal problem because, again, you look at our last shooting where our juvenile was shot in the head. That juvenile brought a gun from his home. He was showing it off to another friend. He ended up shooting himself through the hand. That round went into the juvenile's head. Again, that aspect of how do you intervene on something like that, that comes through education. It comes through being able to tell the parent, hey, watch where your guns are at, all those outreach and that community component. The other juveniles that are involved, it's really challenging too because a lot of the juveniles are not filed on. And that's why a lot of gangs will manipulate juveniles and say, hey, I need you to go get busy for our gang because you will not get a bed. That goes far beyond Aurora. Right now, there is very limited beds for juveniles to go to. Like, I think you and I were at Boulder, I think, in that discussion where there was a total of, I think, 50-some beds or something like that. So we have juveniles that are actually getting released that have done violent crimes. And since there's no place, they have to look, well, who's the least violent? Not who's the least impactful, but the least violent, so we can put somebody else. This is something we are not stopping on. We are continuing to pressing into it. Our SROs are doing a huge amount of outreach. We are never going to solve the problem of juvenile violence, unfortunately, but we are definitely focused on trying to change the trajectory of it. And I know your passion for this, and we are committed to this, 100%. You go to the next slide, please. Our technology that we're using, so NIVERS is our crime analysis, computer-aided dispatch, RMS systems, crime mapping, forecasting, our real-time crime center. If any of you council members would like to go and see the starting phase of where we are at up there, We've already had some amazing events where officers have gone in pursuit, or we've had crimes where individuals have fled a particular crime, and they have left, and our real-time crime center, being able to use the fuses and the flock cameras that are in throughout the city, have been able to track those individuals and do it. So that's something that we're really hoping. We're also hoping for an increase in technology related to our drone technology. Being able to get a drone up in the air to call, so if it's on the Colfax corridor, you can pre-stage drones. They can go up immediately. They can be flown or observed based upon longitude, latitude, out of the real-time information center, and they can track crimes, and we can get units there quicker, or even say, hey, a unit doesn't need to go there. So that's something we're really focused on. The next slide, please. This is the productivity of where we have come. So again, I wanted to look back, so I pulled back from September to now. So our productivity on arrest, we are up. Over the past 6 months, we had a high month at November, December. A lot of that was based on the intervention as far as shoplifting details that we did. So we got a huge amount of shoplifters. Violent crime is here. Right now we're at 596 in February, and our trajectory is going up. Back in September, you had a low. It was actually lower than this. In September, August, it was right around 400. So again, there wasn't a lot of proactive policing. There wasn't a lot of bodies going to jail. And I know, again, it's really interesting to talk about technology, talk about data, but if the body's not going to jail, if the body's still out there victimizing people, you could have all the technology and data you want, but you still have to have somebody that puts hands on them and stops that path. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is on citations. So back in September, they were below 1,000, and then each year they've gone up. Right now in February, we are at 2,264 citations year to date. If you go to the next slide. This is on pursuits. Again, no pursuits. We implemented the policy change. Now we're at 14. We're actually at 17. We had one last night. And I think what's really amazing about the pursuits, like I said, is the maturity of the officer and the personnel understanding what that objective is, because pursuits are incredibly risky. And I tell you, we haven't sat down and talked about it much, but I really took that responsibility on, because when you're going into pursuit, there's a high propensity or high opportunity for tragedy to occur, both internal within the organization or external. And so again, that's really something to think about, but we put a huge training policy, video releases to our officers saying that if the pursuit is going in a really bad direction, discontinue. And we've had just as much success with our officers discontinuing pursuits as much as going beyond what they should be doing and driving carelessly and jeopardizing the community. And so that's been a really positive aspect. And again, the people that have been brought into custody out of these 17 pursuits, like I said, 75% of them have been prolific offenders. And I'm not talking shoplifting. I'm talking most of them have weapon violations. Most of them are involved in robberies. They are involved in violent crimes, and they are being held. Whether it happens to them when the DA gets to it, I don't control that. But I definitely control what we do as far as law enforcement. Can you go to the next slide, please? So our contacts, how many people we have been contacting out in the field. This is our contact data. So if you look back in August, it was about 2,000. Now we're up to 6,002. That means for every CDC, there is an officer who is making contact with somebody, who's having a conversation with somebody, who's finding out why are they in this area, what's going on. And again, I'm really cautious about over-policing. This is not about saturating a whole community based upon the crime. It's about focusing on the individuals that are problematic. And so that's a reflection of where we are there. If you could go to the next slide. These are our crime stats. Again, I wanted you all to see that because I think it does tell the story without question. Last year to date, at this time, we had 3,523 crimes that were reported. This year to date, we have 2,742. It's a reduction of 781 individuals. We have a reduction in crime right now at 22.2% year to date of crime. Don't get lost in the numbers, get lost in the people, because each one of these numbers reflect a human being. And when you look at the red, I know why isn't it black? It should be red, but it's a fluke within the system. We are down in every crime across the category, except right now, motor vehicle theft, which I know we're going to get under control, and then robbery residential, we're up 1. Every other category at this year to date, is down. So again, that's really the hard work and the effort of our officers that are out there. It's the hard work of our staff. It's the hard work of our leadership who have been setting the tone and directing this machine going in the right direction. Can you go to the last page, please? So again, just a real quick summary, unified focus within the organization, no more silos, no more specialized units, not focusing on the concerns, but out there freelancing. Also policy process, again, those policy modifications, those are the ones that I showed you. We're still continually doing those. Our people, data-driven, crime planning as a cycle, act, adapt, and respond as necessary. And that is the last of the slides. Any questions, I'm happy to respond.
If I could, Chief, on the staffing issue, I think when we look at post-George Floyd, our staffing really went down. I mean, we were having academy classes as low as 5 and 7, which, I mean, if you look at normal retirements, if you look at officers that decided that it wasn't for them, given that environment, the anti-law enforcement environment, now and then 2024, I mean, we revised the hiring process, got better perception. Obviously, the department got better. 2024, I think we had average classes around 30. And then now we had the just in process with the largest class we've ever had in the history of the city, which started out around 50. I don't know what it is. I know
About
there's an
44
attrition
right
rate.
now.
44.
Yep.
Well, that's enormous. And so if we can continue down that path, we can bridge this gap.
Yep. I think we'll get
Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, I had a question on the same topic, because this has come up a lot, obviously. Who was it you said created that standard? Because I know in the past when I looked into this, the International Association of Chiefs of Police specifically says there's not a staffing standard. And, you know, you talked a lot about using data, so I'm surprised you would say that we should use a standard to determine the number of cops, because I think in some cases it should be higher, some cases might be lower, depends on the community, depends on density, like a lot of different factors. So I'm surprised to hear that. So I'm just curious where that 2 per 1,000 number came from, because it's not, as far as I've ever researched, an established standard.
Yeah, it's BJA, so Bureau of Justice Administration, and the FBI. That's where that graph came from. And I totally agree with you. Not every department needs the same numbers, but I would tell you without question, having 1.6 in the city of Aurora with all the diversity, with the crime issues, with the problems, and having Boulder or having Colorado Springs with a 2.5, that makes no sense. That's completely upside down. So I think that something does have to be modified. And again, it's not about, I'm not here, you know, give it because I know what we're dealing with, but I am here about educating. I think that the problems and the systems and the issues that we're contending with, and I'm not here waving the flag even on the TDA issue. We're not over that. We are looking and we are investigating. There is still a TDA component here in the city of Aurora. They got displaced. A lot of them went to jail. But I do want to let people be aware of that also. We are focused on crime and the crime activity related to that. And again, that is something that we have to get our arms around quickly and effectively. We are doing research with the grant with UC. I've reached out to national networks because those are issues that, again, if we don't stop them now, I really do think that it could be incredibly problematic down the road. So when you look at our resource staffing, I think you have to look at this community, and this is an incredibly unique community. It's incredibly vibrant, it's incredibly diverse, but it's also incredibly violent. And I think that there needs to be policing and law enforcement here to address that and do it effectively and measurably.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So related to the drones and the surveillance conversation, you know, I'm aware, and the mayor and I talked about this when we went down to Chihuahua, that surveillance can be an incredibly effective tool for, you know, stopping crime and quickly catching offenders. Are there any trade-offs or concerns from a legal standpoint with respect to kind of the civil liberties side of surveillance?
Yeah, and again, I agree with you on that. That's got to be a community component that as we continue to roll this out, we have to have much more community involvement, because you do look historically at some cities like, and it's not even just on drone technology, it's like ShotSpotter, for example. So the city of Baltimore, there was a huge outcry about, hey, this is a surveillance tool, which it's not, it's just a reporting tool. So having that conversation with individuals, making sure the drones are being used correctly, making sure that they are staying on primary streets, not going into backyards, not doing a lot of that stuff unless there's exigent circumstances to do it, that is without question going to make our drone program succeed or fail on how those are being used. But again, for an example, so if there was something up at Colfax and Dayton, being able to have a drone pop up off the headquarters somewhere, fly there, go do a wide orbit on that location and say, hey, there's nobody there, or there is somebody there, and here's where they're going now, before a unit can ever get there, that's really the value of it. And I think to embrace those things, it puts us forward, because there's been a lot of agencies where they haven't embraced the technologies, and I think now they're struggling. And so to be able to embrace it, but do it properly and do it ethically, and make sure that conversation in the community is well aware of it, That's going to be the balance. And it's not an easy lift either, by any stretch.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, oh, I'm sorry.
What are you?
Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Chief, for the presentation. I am definitely intrigued by the idea of the drone technology. I can see a lot of benefit, but hear the concerns around civil liberties. I know that came up with the ShotSpotter a lot. But my question was, like, how are you going to draw a balance of targeting specific individuals or folks who are repeatedly committing crime as opposed to just everyday, community members? Because I do think that's important.
Yeah, it's incredibly important, and I can't agree with you more. And that's where the analysis comes in of identifying your suspects, identifying where they are at, what times are they there, what crimes are they committing, and then focusing on that. And then why are they committing those crimes? Are they committing it for narcotics? Again, we had a homicide up on Peoria the other night. It was 3 individuals. It was a dispute over dope. And the one individual shot the female in the head, and it was all over dope, and that's what it was. And so being able to identify those individuals that are involved in that, focus on those. Again, if that's just the example we're using, that's what we want to do. Because, again, when you look at 404,000 people, it's not about identifying an entire community or an entire area. It's about identifying the ones that are problematic. And it is always going to be a struggle, but that's what we are focused on and committed to. I hope that gave you a little bit of something that you were looking for.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, I have one other comment.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Just want to uplift the data-driven approach. I know there's been pushback in the past from council on focusing resources on specific areas. Obviously, aligning that where there are high instances of crime makes a lot of sense to me. So I just want to uplift that approach that you're taking.
Okay. Okay. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on, but are there any other questions or comments? Thanks, Chief. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Item number 3B, Pfizer Committee Report. Liz Rogers.
Liz Rogers, Intergovernmental Relations Manager. Just 2 bills that the committee took on the April 4th meeting, and they're both state bills. So support for House Bill 25-1301, authorizing voice court reporter to give oath, and an opposed position for House Bill 25-1295, food truck operations.
Questions of Liz Rogers? Seeing none, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Item number 5A. Oh, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I did not have the most up-to-date agenda, and so is there any consent calendar item number 2F through 2J? I didn't take that into account. Is there any objection to moving item number 2F through 2J forward on the consent calendar? Seeing none, they'll move forward. Progressive Urban Management Associates, progress report. Rather, okay. And I think we've had a briefing on this, so this is really for action only.
Correct. Good evening, Laura Perry, Deputy City Manager, joined by Brad Siegel from Progressive Urban Management Associates. Thank you, Pete. Tonight at the AURA meeting, Council heard an informational update as their role as commissioner. So tonight, the endorsement to move forward into Phase 2 will be asked of City Council, and Brad will briefly walk through very quickly a handful of slides for a quick recap of the AURA discussion.
City Council, thank you for having us back. I think almost all of you were involved at our matinee show with the Urban Renewal Authority, where we went into some detail. Is it you or you?
Me.
Okay. Nope.
Is it necessary for them to go over this again? Yeah, I'm sorry that due to time constraints, I'm gonna ask you to put in the fact that we've already had a briefing earlier. Can you please put the question before council in terms of direction?
Okay, great.
Feel bad.
To expedite, the question before council tonight is moving forward with the Colfax Community Vision and Action Plan and to further investigate two different organizational mechanisms that will help revitalize and also organize the Northwest Aurora community. So we are recommending to explore both a downtown development authority and a community development corporation in greater detail. As we stated in our earlier presentation, our next phase of work would create greater detail for both options, including boundaries, calculations of tax increment financing, determining how the two entities would work together, governance structures, ongoing community engagement, and then we would be back midsummer with recommendations to go from there.
I think, but your ask right now is just one of general direction for this combined DDA and CDC. Is that,
Correct.
am I
That we
correct
move
in that?
forward phase 2 to explore both options.
Very well. Is there any objection to the recommendation? Seeing, I'm sorry, Councilmember Zirinsky objects. Is there further objection? Seeing no further objection, then the direction is to do the DDA and CDC.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Fitzsimmons Innovation Community Update. Laura, okay. Kelly Bro is relatively newly hired to be our executive director for the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community. Kelly, the floor is yours.
I'll be speedy. I've got a chance to meet with a number of you. I've scheduled meetings with others.
And we have 20 minutes.
Oh, this is our 24 annual report, just to give you a quick update and to help you sleep tonight in case you're struggling. I'm going to remind you where we came from 30 years ago. This was an Army post, and frankly, Aurora saw the vision that said this could really be home to healthcare, bio, and life science center for the state of Colorado. And today, we boast one of the largest bioscience communities in the nation. We have about 600 total acres on the campus today, and Fitzsimmons redevelopment, or the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community, is responsible for about 184 of those acres. And you'll see on this next slide, it kind of just shows you the layout. Do one more. There we go. You see the VA, Children's, UC Health, the Anschutz campus itself with all the medical school, and I think we have over 40 schools. And then the green is the part that I'm really focused on and working on. Let's go one more, Laura. So about 28,000 people work on that campus today. We don't talk about this much, but what really struck me last summer when I was looking at this opportunity is this is the second largest economic driver in the state of Colorado. And if we were to poll people in our state, I bet nobody would guess that. And it is second by a long shot, as in nobody is coming close to third. First is Denver International Airport. So it's exciting to be there. In 29 years, we now host 3 hospitals. 2 of them are nationally recognized, a medical school with over 40 degrees being offered on our campus today. We manage 3 bioscience facilities that have over 80 people, companies in them testing new ideas. We have a manufacturing facility. I'll talk a little more about that. You can help me market it. We need people in that facility. We have apartments, a luxury hotel, and restaurants. And it was really Aurora's vision that said what this could potentially be. And 30 years ago, by the way, it was the city of Aurora and CU who together said we're going to create this authority and this vision for our future. And so you have 3 members of council, your mayor, Councilman Gardner, and Councilwoman Bergen, who are on my board, and they're my bosses, so I try to be really nice to them at all times. Let's go to the next one. As I mentioned, we have over 80 companies that are startups. Often this can be a doctor. We have faculty from School of Mines, as an example, who have an idea. And they want to test that idea. And we're kind of the perfect campus for a few reasons. Not only do we give you access to hospitals where you can run your clinical trials, you can access experts in your field who can give you feedback on what you're doing, but we also do it at a lower cost than you can get in other bioscience, particularly on the coast, but even in our own state, like in Boulder. And this is critical. These companies don't have a lot of money, and they really need that support of people who are helping them start the company, get to trial, and see if their drugs or their life-saving technology can actually work. And I'll be honest, it is inspiring. The more I get to know those who are on the campus, the more you realize it is really exciting to think about the future of healthcare in our nation when you see what's happening here. Let's do the next one. Location is everything. You don't have to be in real estate to know this, but I'm going to remind you why the city of Aurora is such a sweet spot. We are the 12th best city in the nation to start a business. This is really important for those startup companies to be in a place where they feel supported and that they can thrive. The most diverse city in Colorado, this is critical because so many of our companies are trying to address the inequities we continue to see in healthcare. And when they do it in this city, they have access to populations that can really help them explore the challenges we face. Less than 30 minutes to DIA. If you drive like me, you can do it in about 20. And
Chief's gone. You're in luck. He's gone. It's all right.
Chief doesn't have officers on our way. Yeah. 2 rail stops, major highways. This is the stuff, when you're in economic development, that companies are looking for, and this is where they want to invest. And then we've spent a lot of time thinking about our future. Who do we want to become, and what does that look like? And I've done just a quick next slide to kind of show you some of how we're thinking about what's coming up. Today we have about 415,000 square feet that are dedicated to research and lab and office space for these companies. 90,000 of that built in manufacturing. If you've been out there, this is a really big one-story building. We don't have anyone in it yet, but we've had some interest in the last 30, 45 days of companies that are looking at it and trying to figure out, could that be a manufacturing facility for them? And we're hitting close to 90% occupancy, which is really good news for us, because this has been a bad couple of years for bioscience and life sciences. And so this gives us a chance to start thinking about what's next and what do we build in our future as we continue to grow. And this is where we'll be back to you. The next slide, we'll talk a little about our master plan and what's coming. You've seen some of this. We're hoping by May of this year you'll get a chance to look at it in great detail with us. But what you'll see is, as you know, we're increasing density. Part of the challenge we face is that when companies want to build a lab or bring their company, they want to be in a place that's really vibrant, where their employees can eat in a restaurant and there's retail. And to make that happen, you have to have a little more density, where you have people living there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that the restaurant can stay in business and can be there during the week when our companies and their workers are there. We're really looking at making sure we're providing a place that is inspirational to people. So you're going to see us commit to 1% for the arts, to parks and open space, so that people in our community want to live there as much as they want to work there, where scientists are bumping into each other when they're walking down our streets. We really want to soften the edges so that our surrounding community sees this as their campus too, where they're coming and going, where we're offering to host community events and activities. We're working with Aurora Public Schools right now to explore how students can be on our campus more, actually learning when they're in high school and being paid to do it in internships on our campus. And some of you may know this, but Aurora Public Schools is opening a dedicated high school focused on healthcare across the street from us. And I think our partnership will be seamless, where I intend every one of those kids to come work on our campus and help support our future. We need them. And then, of course, we're really trying to figure out on the campus itself, how do we strengthen relationships with each other? This is everything from, can we have an energy system that we take advantage of together with our hospitals to save money? Can we have better parking and mobility services to move people around? Someday people are going to take that light rail again, right? And we'd like to be able to make it really easy choice for those 28,000 people on our campus, so they can take the train in and we can move them easily around the campus. So much more partnership in that regard. And the last picture is just a picture of the future we all envision for this space. I couldn't be more excited to be in your city working with you on this incredible opportunity. So I'll jump to questions, Mayor, if...
Any questions? Let me just say, so that's saying, so this is part of the, in fact, it's the northern part of the campus, which is really the FIC or Fitzsimmons redevelopment area. And
Yeah.
what it utilizes is the Sand Creek area in an incredible way. And so it's just, it's the revised master plan. And I think the tribal architects, I think, did a great job. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks for your presentation. Look forward to having lunch with you pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you.
People may work in a bioscience aspect, they might teach elsewhere, they might practice medicine. As they're moving around the campus, are there some mobility benefits? Are there any tools in place, any autonomous vehicle ideas or anything like that?
Oh, you read my mind. So today, CU has a shuttle that moves people from, the parking lots in the north to where they work in the south of the campus. But I think absolutely what we have to do is stop having each of us solve these issues on our own and treat it more like a 600-acre campus where we say, what if we had an autonomous vehicle that just ran literally every 10 minutes through so that you could jump on and off with great ease? And I think those are absolutely the kind of solutions. Another example of this would be district energy. You might hear a lot of people talk about this. I'm already meeting with CU and Children's Hospital to talk about, could we form an alliance where we might bid in the market to see, could we do electrification off the grid among ourselves and really long-term save some money, but also achieve the state standards that have been laid out around getting greener, and which is very hard for hospitals to do today. So I think it's those kind of things, the potential's great.
Kelly, if I could make one quick point, and that is that we've been working on getting things off the campus that we don't think should be there to make more room for bioscience research. And this is, and so Jason Batchelor, the city manager, along with Liz Rogers, went to the Pentagon, to meet with the Army Reserve in terms of moving the Army Reserve facility, which is 20 acres, which is in the FIC area, and moving that over by Buckley. And so that conversation has started, and that we will be consolidating our city's homeless services up north at Chambers and I-70. And so then we can close the Aurora Day Resource Center once that's operational, and then that will give us about 4 acres in terms of redevelopment, although that's just a little bit south. That's just on the south side of Montview. Montview is the dividing line.
Yeah, but two great examples of really making sure we're getting the highest and best uses on this campus, and it can really support this kind of density. There's no question. Yeah.
Very urban campus. Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, kind of a comment along those lines, Mayor. When I was elected to the board 3 or 4 years ago, I remember asking for the master plan and was given a Word document essentially, which was kind of startling for what this campus already is and what it could become. And I'm excited for the master plan process to come forward to council, because I think it's really going, and with Kelly's leadership in the board, it's really going to allow us to take advantage of what this campus could be, unique all across the U.S. So.
Yeah. It's an economic catalyst for Northwest Aurora. Councilmember Coons.
Mayor, just somewhat to your point, I do think that there's the component of the hospitals still being places for services to the community and services to people in need. And so I think that was highlighted somewhat, but I think it's important not to lose sight of that even as we're moving those particular high-intensity services off of the campus.
Well, and let me just say quickly that we are going to be doing an agreement with UC Health that is being negotiated as we speak, that we will provide respite care for those experiencing homelessness to go through the emergency room that have nowhere to go for recovery, that we will be dedicating. Jessica, how many rooms?
10 to 20.
10 to 20, so it's nothing.
Well, and just to highlight, Councilwoman, 2 million patients are seen on this campus a year. Just critical services in our state.
Yeah. Further, Councilmember Lawson?
No, Councilmember Bergen.
Oh, Councilmember Bergen? Is in the penthouse suite, it's pretty.
I know, my virtual background is beautiful. No, I'm just excited also to be on the board, and I just want to say that under the leadership of Kelly Bruff, we already have seen her in action, and just delighted to have her because she has the vision necessary to really to make Fitzsimmons an economic catalyst for the region. So just excited, and thank you.
Further questions or comments? Kelly, anything else?
No, sir.
Great job. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Are we done?
Listening session, it's like we're done, that's it.
Oh, listening session. Yay. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm driving. I'm driving. Driving in the car. I'm driving.